Ho, ho, ho. Welcome to Pursuing
Santa Claus.
And this is going to make me sad now thinking of my grandparents, but they used to have this Santa Claus thing that would hang up on one of the doors, like just a decoration, but it was like one of those motion sensor, like, the Halloween things, like you walk by and like, woo! And just that we always used to imitate this Santa Claus because you walk by and it was just this really like sharp, like, ho, 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 Merry Christmas. And me and my cousin Brandon would just do it constantly. Like it was the funniest shit. You know what? My parents keep going through all their stuff. If they have that, I want that bad. I want that thing bad. It's so funny. Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with Randall Nolery.
Hey.
John Hines.
Hi there.
And DJ Mandolini.
Yo.
And as always, we're talking about video games, guys, but we're doing something a little bit out of the ordinary. We're going to talk about maybe more games than usual this week because we're celebrating the end of 2020, and Lord knows what we're celebrating. But we are celebrating all the great video games that we've played throughout the year and talked about on the podcast. So this is sort of like our Game of the Year episode, sort of. We make some holiday resolutions as well at the end for next year, which we just got around to recently, at least DJ and I. So you might have heard us talk about Undertale and Deadbolt recently. But yeah, we're going to just have a little fun here tonight, have a little looser episode, and dig into things and pick a few games, highlight a few things we've talked about on the podcast kind of briefly in the past, and we'll link to all that in the episode description. So if you're new to the podcast, thanks for joining in. And if you're coming back, definitely check out some of these games if you haven't already.
Yes, sir.
But I guess I will get us started. And instead of just picking one game like we did last year, we're all going to kind of do a top three to make sure we don't have too much overlap. So I want to start off first and foremost with Lonely Mountains Downhill as my, I was going to say is my number one, but is one of my three. But again, I know I talk all the time. Again, if you've listened to the podcast before, I love like the arcadey type stuff. And this one kind of popped back into my brain because they just put out a new DLC pretty recently, a couple months ago with like a new mountain. And I'm like, my thought was just like, they could just pretty much just keep releasing DLC for this game with new mountains and tracks, and I would just keep buying it. Like the gameplay I love so much. It's like, these you can play it with a couple different settings, but I prefer these tank controls, and there's just so many different options of like get down the hill as fast as you can or get down without crashing. The way the challenges work, even though I know I complained recently about Disc Room having all these challenges, but the way they feel laid out feel appropriate in Lonely Mountains Downhill, where they feel like they're almost like rewarding you for failure in Disc Room. And there are other games that do that too. But yeah, Lonely Mountains Downhill, I can't get enough of that game. I love it so much. It's cycling, kind of isometric, low poly. If you're not familiar with Lonely Mountains Downhill and you like arcade racing games or any combination of that, I just highly, highly recommend checking this out. And you played a little bit of it too, John, right?
Yeah, actually.
We first talked about it on the podcast, right?
Oh, yeah. And as soon as you mentioned that there's DLC, I was like, oh, nope, I'm definitely getting that and replaying.
And it looks sweet.
Game.
It's like a volcano island. It looks really cool. Dude. It looks really cool, and I think there might even be more tracks than a typical mountain. I'm not positive, but they made it sound like it was like a little more going on. So
nice. I'll definitely be picking that up again. Yeah,
super excited for that. Another game that I talked about actually pretty recently, but it was more of a recap on this game. But I kind of forgot that I talked about this, but Kero Blaster is also going to be in my top three. And actually part of that is because I just played through, I think when I mentioned it last on the podcast, I mentioned Pink Heaven and Pink Hour. I might have forgot to mention those, but they're kind of like a prequel and a sequel sort of, or a prologue and an epilogue, where you get to play as like the pink, the office lady in the game. Nice. And you're trying to like rescue the shopkeeper, like the two people that you buy items from and stuff in the game. And they're really short. Like I did actually streams of both of them, and they took me like about 30 minutes, but there's like a hard mode on each one, like kind of a few little secrets. I just thought it was like so charming. And I don't think I really mentioned that much, but the sense of humor in those games is just hilarious. Like a really great like localization, because I know Pixel is Japanese, so I know they're like, whoever's localizing this is really nailing the like it just, the humor lands every time, like the end of Pink Hour, because it was almost like an advertisement for Kero Blast. There's even like a link banner in the bottom right corner of the game, where if you click on it, and actually when I reach the credit screen of normal mode on Pink Heaven, it opens up the browser to where you can buy Kero Blaster, which is just amazing.
It's great.
Like it's just, it's so just charming. But there's like a nice little cutscene at the end of the game that was like, hey, have you checked out this game? Like, no, that's not the one I want. I want Kero Blaster.
I love Kero
It was just
Blaster.
like, it was just so good.
It's great.
So yeah, I just like had a really great time. I actually played through also with Kero Blaster. Like I went through and I played, I think I mentioned Zangu mode last time I talked about it on the podcast. I did actually go back and fire up Omake mode and did a full playthrough of that.
My man.
And just as I suspected, it was actually a little bit easier. Like you start out with 1 heart and it is difficult, but you have all your upgrades. So like as soon as you get to the first shop, you get 2 hearts. As soon as you have 3 hearts, like I blew through it in about an hour and a half.
Good Lord.
Where like the whole game, like Zangu mode was much, much more difficult with the new, just completely different level layouts. But they did the same thing with Pink Hour and Pink Heaven with like new level layouts in the hard mode. Really, really cool stuff. Just really recommended.
Question, like, so that whole package of Kero Blaster, how does that stand up against Cave Story to you in the overall scheme of things?
I honestly probably will play Kero Blaster more times. Like I will go back to this game and just keep playing it. I love it so much. And like Cave Story, because of what it is, it's more of like an experience kind of thing where like got to be in like that mindset of like, it's a little more, and Kero Blaster has like kind of an interesting story too.
But that's not the focus necessarily there.
Yeah, Cave Story feels like you're more like, I'm more in like an adventure mindset where like Kero Blaster is like I'm in arcade mode, like like Lonely Mountains Downhill, you know, I'm just like thinking like that. So
nice.
I was thinking about cheating a little bit for my number 3 or for my third game and picking a game that we actually haven't talked about on the podcast. And I was talking about Tiny Heist with you guys in the Discord, and I'm not going to use that as my number 3, but I'm only mentioning it because I need somebody to play that with me so that we can talk about it, because goddamn, it's another game from Terry Kavanagh, and it's just so good. I'm having so much fun, and I can't wait to talk about it with you guys if anyone's interested. But it's a top-down roguelike.
Going to.
Yeah, Terry Kavanagh is a genius. But still going to go a little bit unorthodox because, for my number 3, I just thought about over this last year, what have I had the most fun with playing video games? And it's been like, not necessarily, I mean, I had a blast booting up all those Itch.io bundle games. I found so many cool developers that way. And because of that, even though some of these developers, I don't know for sure, there were so many games in that bundle, I don't know for sure if they were included, but I just started poking around on Itch.io a bunch.
Yeah.
But Daniel Linssen and Matt Ugg, I just have to just highlight them kind of as a package. I've probably played close to 20 games of theirs between the two of them. They both have like probably about 24 games on their Itch.io pages that are, they range in length, very short, but I've done streams of, they can be anywhere from like, some of them are like 15 seconds, but for the most part, they're like, 5 minutes to an hour and a half long. Nice. But they're like, both of their games are like kind of puzzle platformers with a shifting emphasis on how much of the focus is on the puzzle aspect of things and how much is on the aspect of like precision platforming. But they also have some like top-down roguelike games. Like they definitely experiment with game design quite a bit, but they just both do such a great job with like pixel art. Like just the music's great. Connor Grail does all the music for Matt's games. I don't know. I think Daniel Linssen might work by himself. I know he actually worked on Goner 2 as well. Saw his name in the credits. So I don't know what else he does in games, but I'm just going to list off all the games that I have videos of for each of these developers real quick and just mention, like, if you like game design at all, you just have to check out their games. They're all free to play. Matt's games are all free to play in the browser. You can just boot them right up. Boot it up in Chrome. Firefox is terrible for playing these games, but boot it up in Chrome. Firefox is terrible for everything. Just boot it up in Chrome. At least on my computer. But yeah, so for Daniel Linssen, I've played through Birdsong, Breaker, Outline, Cognizance, Wibble Wobble, Adrenaline, Chimney Presence, which I just played today, A Knife Made of Whispers, which I also just played today, and actually another one I just played today, Perisher, which is a mod of the Pico 8 Celeste, and it's like got all kinds of, it took me about an hour, like Pico 8 Celeste took me about 20 minutes to beat, this took me about an hour and a half, and I just did a stream of that earlier today. Holy shit, is it hard. It adds in some new mechanics. The Pico 8 stuff is just so cool. I really recommend checking that stuff out if you're not familiar. But then real quick onto Matt Ugg, and a lot of these games we've talked about on the podcast too, but there's also videos on our YouTube and Twitch. But Yin and Yang, Flap, Cannon, Imp, Show, Melt. I guess these are all just one word.
Yeah.
Whiz, Pump, Dead Guy with no A in dead, and Nobody or Nobody. I'm not sure. It's all one word. And Nobody was probably my favorite, or Nobody, of the things I just played that last night from Matt. And it's like this kind of little mini. It took me about 20, 30 minutes to beat, but like a mini Metroidvania where you're like, you don't have the ability to jump, but you have like an octo-directional, like 8-directional aiming with, you control it with the WASD and arrow keys, but I programmed it with that anti-micro software to basically control like a twin stick shooter.
Nice.
And then you hit the shoulder button is how I had it set up to like fire off of the ground. So you use that as like a jump, but you have to be either pressing against a wall or on the ground to like launch yourself. So like you just, there's just a lot of puzzle solving. There's a lot of like, just, it's like an obstacle course kind of
Nice
platformer, but really cool. It worked really well. There's no way in hell I could have played this. I'm terrible with keyboard controls. I could never have played this, but with that anti-micro software, I'm just going to plug that. I think I've mentioned that before on the podcast too, but like it's made so many games playable to me that would otherwise be unplayable, including the Perisher Pico 8 Celeste mod, because I had to use it for that too because it was only keyboard controls. So
nice.
But yeah, I know that's not one game. That's actually 19 games. But I when I really think about this year, those were probably, if I had to pick one thing, that's my most memorable gaming experience this year. And I could plan. There's still tons of games I haven't even checked out from them. So
nice.
I just can't wait to dig into more. And I'm check our YouTube and Twitch if you want to check out some of their stuff. But Randall, why don't we move on to your selections as far as your favorite games of the year and stuff we talked about this year?
Yes. So I'm going to go in the opposite order that you just did, but that's okay because I'm going to talk about a couple of honorable mentions first that I couldn't quite wedge into my top 3, but were really cool games that I loved a lot in 2020. First, I'm going to talk about Bot Vice, which I got into.
Yes.
Pretty hardcore. I was looking back through, like, what did I talk about this year? I'm like, oh my God, Bot Vice. Like, I have to mention that here. Like, it's that gallery shooter style game like Wild Guns. Great retro sprite art. Really great frenetic action. Really difficult, which normally is not a huge positive for me, but for whatever reason with this gameplay styling, I was able to completely lock in and see like full credits on that game, like complete,
which is freaking impressive, man. I just kind of like dipped my toe in and played a little bit, but like, holy crap. That game is hard, and it gets hard fast.
It's so hard. Yeah, like by level 4, I was stuck. But for whatever reason, like it was so well designed that I persevered and kept sticking with it because I just liked it so much, just how it felt and everything and how it looked. And soundtrack was pretty good too. The DYA kills it on their like that 16-bit era arcade Super Nintendo style. They really do a great job with their games. I love it. Yeah. So I hope we get another one of those and add 2-player next time, please, and make it online.
Yes, please. I'd play that all day. Yes.
Another honorable mention, I have a feeling this will also get mentioned future on here, so I won't talk too much about it, but I loved my time with it, and that's A Short Hike. I just missed my list. That was the third game I had written down, and I was like, I gotta highlight these little mini indies. I'm glad you did, though.
So close.
Yeah.
So close.
Yeah. And just like that DS feel and just the good vibes it gave off in a very not good vibes year. That'll be a theme on my list.
Yes. That was why I ended up taking it off my list overall, is because I was like, the experience I loved, but like the game, and the game is awesome too, like the gameplay itself. But like I was like, overall, I'm remembering the experience more than like the game. Where like I guess I lean towards picking like the gameplay type of games.
Sure. No, I loved the experience, but I'm not going to talk too much about that because I know I have a very good feeling it's going to come up again here. So,
and it's probably a game too that's just good to go into somewhat blind,
yes,
or at least with little knowledge.
I would agree
just play
with that.
Through in an evening because it's a perfect game for that.
Beautiful game for that.
Yeah.
My number 3 is Animal Crossing: New Horizons. And
Okay.
again, it's because of 2020 was a brutal year, and this came out in like the spring, and it was just
right
shortly
perfect.
after the
start
pandemic kind of kicked in. Yeah,
perfect
It was
timing.
like, I
at the
remember
start of the
everybody was
pandemic.
saying like, "What a perfect time for this game to come out."
Unreal. And just like what that allowed for escapism, and like one of the scariest times to live through, I think, for us.
Seriously, yeah.
was kind of wild. And it was great. And that was before they continued to add a whole bunch of content since then, a lot of which I've still yet to see, but I want to jump back into it. And really the only reason it's number 3 instead of number 1 is because after about summertime, I didn't stick with it past that point. But I'll tell you, it's back in my Switch right now as the cartridge, and I plan on booting it up again because I know they've updated for every season.
Oh yeah.
And I think Tina and I are going to get back into it for the winter, but I love that game.
That seems like a perfect game to like cozy up with for the winter for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My number 2 is Monster Boy in the Cursed Kingdom.
Nice.
So,
Okay, that's a little bit of a shock because like I know you were mostly in, but like by the end, I know you were a little bit kind of burned out Fall Guys style.
and that's why it's number 2 instead of number 1.
Gotcha.
In general, that's a 30-plus hour game when I was like, ooh. Like, if I could have just had that be like 5 to 10 hours shorter, it probably would be number 1. Because, oh my Lord, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful game. And the soundtrack's great. And it plays great. And like, it's just the perfect distillation of those retro Wonder Boy or Monster Boy games, but made modern without losing the essence of what those games are. They just made too much of it. Like,
yeah, I agree with you though. It's a great game. Like I didn't see it all the way through or anything, but I played the first handful of hours and did my usual thing where I just moved on to the next game. But like really was having a good time with it. They did nail that like feel without it feeling like stiff in a some retro inspired games feel very stiff, and this is not the case.
And even more crazy that it doesn't feel stiff when we're talking about like drawn animation style.
Hand drawn, like gorgeous, like cell animation, basically. I mean, maybe not quite, but basically.
That's what it felt like. And normally when you get those games that are more kind of graphical art priority, that's kind of taking the animation priority of your controls as well. If you think back
get
to
a little like Prince of Persia or exactly. Yep.
Whereas it never felt that way here. I always was in complete control, and it's necessary because this game is hard.
Yeah, and what's weird is it actually even because the like. I don't know if it's the same exact team of developers, but on the Monster Boy or the Dragon's Trap or whatever that version is, that is like a remake of the Sega Master System version or whatever. And that version you can actually like at the press of a button swap between like the Master System or the arcade version and the new updated, and like it actually helped me play the game a little, like something about like the way it was animated and whatnot. It was like smoother. It felt a little like I missed jumps more often when I was in the, because I was just swapping between. Yeah. And I feel like the more like specific animations in some way, the more detailed animations actually kind of help. Yeah. The gameplay a little bit.
I agree. It kind of like helps telegraph what you're doing. I guess,
or like, am I actually at the end of this platform or not? Like, it's the animations when they're a little stiffer, it's harder to tell. So,
So all that to say, like, I had issues at the end, but I love this game. Ultimately, I love Monster Boy in the Cursed Kingdom. I'm so glad I own it physically, and I hope they make another one that it did well enough because I'll play that too, despite my gripes with the length here.
I know you got me wanting to go back, and I'm a little bit disappointed about because I know we got super psyched about that Monster World 4 like remake that got announced, but then they like put some screenshots out.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see on that one.
That one got the like 3D treatment. And
the 2.5D, but like the like hat, like like when they made that Klonoa remake for the Wii. Yeah, it was like, why did you just like suck the life out of this game? Like the PS1 version had so much personality, and then they just kind of like made it a shitty looking Wii game.
And at least that one still played well enough. So
it was the same game essentially. Yeah. God, Klonoa 2, what a great game, by the way.
Oh, Klonoa is great in general.
Yeah, the Game Boy Advance games. Anyways, sorry.
No, I'll take a Klonoa detour.
I'm gonna play some Klonoa 2 soon. Like
Do it.
all I can think about is that game. Yeah. So good.
My number one is Streets of Rage 4. So,
whoa.
Nice.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming.
I know. I didn't until recently too, and I'm like, let me look back at the games I talked about this year, and I'm like, oh shit, Streets of Rage 4, of course. I love Streets of Rage 4. Streets of Rage 4. I talked about this back in the day on the pod when it came out, but it still holds true now. They nailed the feel of Streets of Rage 2. To me, it's like the best. It's essentially the best beat 'em up I've played. It surpassed Streets of Rage 2 for me. Wow. And that's a big deal, because Streets of Rage 2 I hold in very high regard on Sega Genesis.
Is that your number one beat 'em up in general?
Yes.
Even over Turtles in Time?
Yes.
The game sucks.
Okay. That's fair. It's a great game.
The only thing that I'll give Streets of Rage 2 over Streets of Rage 4 is the soundtrack of Streets of Rage 2 is impeccable.
It's a little better. Yeah, I remember we talked about it on the podcast, or at least I mentioned, like, not as enamored with 4, even though it's still good.
But I am enamored with Streets of Rage 4's soundtrack to the point where I bought the vinyl. I still really like the soundtrack of Streets of Rage 4. I just don't think it's quite as good as 2, which I also own the vinyl of.
And again, that's like considered one of the best video game soundtracks of all time by a lot of people. So.
I consider it one of the best.
And rightfully so, for sure. It's amazing.
Yes. But Streets of Rage 4, what it does is it takes, like, these are folks that studied Streets of Rage 2, really understood on a deep level what people love about the mechanics of playing a beat 'em up like Streets of Rage is, and applied it to a modern context, where now you're getting the same beat 'em up action but in widescreen with extra characters and like modern touches like experience points that kind of carry over runs that unlock new characters and retro style characters and like give you reasons to replay, besides the fact that it's replayable anyway, being a beat 'em up. Gives you those opportunities, and it's just so fun to play. I'll just go back to that game anytime. In fact, we're planning on playing it again tomorrow, just because I was talking about it again in preparation for this holiday episode. And
wait a minute, can you play 3 players?
Yeah.
Online? Like, can you and Tina play online, and then I can join you?
Yes.
Or you and Tina can play locally, and I can join you online?
Yes.
Let's do it. I'm free tomorrow, so
yes. Okay.
If you're interested, I'm down, man.
Sounds good.
Oh, let's do it.
Sounds good.
Because I've only played with you I booted up to check it out real quick, but I pretty much played with you that one time, and I think we got through maybe like 2/3 of the game or so.
Yeah.
I would guess, but was having a blast. It was awesome. It almost has that like roguelike feel where you're like unlocking stuff and like getting new things all the time, new characters, new palette, or not palettes, but they just had that feel of like rewarding you all the time for doing stuff.
Yep. And there's just enough story beats and enemy variation to kind of keep you interested, where none of it ever feels mundane. And I just love beat 'em ups as a genre anyway, so I'm not someone that would ever feel like it was mundane anyway, unless it was poorly designed, which it's not. It's great.
Hey, so. but for a beat 'em up to take the number 1 slot for you, that's impressive, because like I do love beat 'em ups as well, but they're kind of just like, oh, I had a fun time playing that with Randall the one time online or on the couch. It's like, it's not like games that really it's more like the memories that stick with me more than the game itself.
Sure.
So that's pretty impressive.
This is the best version of that genre. That's the pedestal I would put it on.
For sure. That's awesome. But how about you, DJ? Why don't we move on to some of your favorites from the podcast this year?
Sure.
Even though I know you missed a little bit of the year, but you still talked about plenty of games, especially that long, healthy list.
Yes. I don't think I'm actually picking anything from that list. Believe it or not.
What?
That's surprising. Yeah.
I could pick many of those for honorable mentions, but I'm just going to stick with one honorable mention. And for me, that's going to be Fall Guys.
Nice.
Wow. Okay. I didn't see that coming either.
I've been just so pleasantly surprised by how like into this game like I initially got and continue to be even now. I think I'm a sucker for these like battle royale style games, and doing it with these like Mario Party type platforming games. Like, it's been a ton of fun, and especially when we were playing together earlier in the year, Kevin, when you still had a PlayStation subscription.
No, that was a ton of fun. I had a blast playing those.
Yeah, and it's just been really great how they've been just, again, proactive about responding to what the community seems to want. So I have confidence that like every time I come back, like I'm confident that there's going to be like a lot of, you know, positive adjustments they're going to make each and every time. So
yeah, it feels cool that you can just kind of keep your ear to the ground, like, oh, new Fall Guys update. Let me drop back in and check it out.
Yeah. So now onto my list. I'm going to do this in no particular order.
I was going to say, are you ordering them up like Randall or no?
It was hard for me to pick a number one.
Same here. Yeah, mine were in no order either.
That's fair.
I'll start with Invisible Ink. It's one of my top games of the year.
Wow.
I got so sucked into this game to the point where I could play for like 12 hours straight and just be glued.
Shit, I don't know, like, because we talked about that together on the podcast, and I don't know that I got that impression from you.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I knew you liked it, obviously, but I didn't know you were like that sucked in.
I was extremely sucked in. Like, just the level of like engagement I think that game requires. Just like, I don't know. At least when I was playing on the hard mode, it's just like I would mull over my choices like for minutes before like making a move. Like, it was
wow.
The game.
That's cool, because like Into the Breach gave me that feeling.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that feeling of like, what should I do? What should I do?
Yeah, it was, and like it was just nice how, you know, there's the roguelite elements where like you could have different agent members, and like each facility you're breaking into is like procedurally generated. So there is like, I appreciate when it's not just like, oh, just memorize this. Like, I felt like each run was like, I approached the game like just very differently each run.
Yeah, dude, you got to play Tiny Heist then. You got to get on board with me and John.
Okay. Next on my list, I'm going to go with Resident Evil 7.
Ooh. Whoa. I don't even know if I remember talking about that on the podcast.
I think it was at the beginning of the year. I was beginning to go through it. But man, like, I think this is maybe my favorite horror game I've ever played.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit, yeah.
Just, god damn. Like, I was... the first time I tried playing this game, I had to stop because I didn't think I'd be able to make it through. Just like...
I feel you there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just these first-person views... and like with zero like music or anything in the background, where it's just completely silent. It's just like that. Those are so hard for me to do. But like,
did you ever play that in VR?
Yeah, yeah. Because I was just thinking, I kind of remember talking about that aspect of it.
Yeah, when's the VR run happening?
God, I mean, I
get that PS5, baby.
Yeah, I need to see like if an updated version of the VR is going to come out next year. But I will get it. And that should be up there on the list of what I'm playing. But fuck, I doubt I can finish that. Even knowing like what's coming.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a different world in VR for sure.
Yeah. It's just another game that like I just get so engrossed in just because I'm so scared.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
Seriously.
You've played a little too, Randall?
I played the demo of it, and I'm like, oh, like, I still want to play through it. But I was a scaredy cat back in like playing the remake of Resident Evil on GameCube, let alone with modern graphics.
I know. I was like,
jeez, man. In first person, like DJ said, like that's a big difference maker.
That for sure.
Yeah.
Even just the size of everything, you know, like the monsters, the zombies, whatever, they're just a little bigger when they get in your face. Yeah. It's like, fuck, man.
Yeah. Stuff that can like, you know, even if it's just like a scared emotion, something that can make me feel like an emotion of like that magnitude, like I have to put it on the list. But
yeah, that's fair for sure.
But last on the list, and I'm kind of disappointed in you guys for not including it in your list so far. Will be Hades.
It was also
John's doing
very
a little
close.
dance.
It was very close for me too. I will say I had a lot of fun with that. Although I ended up just going to Transistor.
I'm just glad that we've expanded the list to our top 3 games because my entire list has already been said.
Oh, geez.
What? Oh
Sorry,
no!
boy.
Oh no! Well, good thing we saved John for last.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like such a fucking. It's got both like action, like gameplay elements are solid and like very engaging. Plus, like I felt that the story was awesome and like kept giving me more and more reasons to come back. And at this point, I am over 250 hours.
I was gonna say you're getting close to 250. You're fucking insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's only a few minor things that I still need to get, but like I'm still gonna go back, and it's just very fun every time.
And that's impressive, man, because we've talked about other games on the podcast where you're just kind of like, yeah, I'm done. I beat it and I'm done. You know, in this game, even though you've beaten it, you know, I know I can't remember what game it was recently that you mentioned, like, you know, it's not, I know the 100% draws there for some games, for me too, but like, I know you're not necessarily going for that just because you're doing it because you love this game.
Yeah,
so.
man. Yeah. It's rare that I find a lot of replay value in games. So this definitely says something. So
yeah, I definitely need to go back to that.
Oh.
But yeah, John, why don't you get into your top 3? I feel terrible.
Yeah, why don't you just say what's already said?
But why don't you just you just share our thoughts?
I've got a little surprise. I did keep one card close to the chest here.
Nice.
And I was gonna say that I very seriously considered putting on my list of the top game of this year my top game of last year, which was Risk of Rain 2.
That's fair.
Hey, that's totally fair. Yeah.
Just it has continued, like they've been rolling out new content for it continuously over the past year.
Yep.
And they finally
that
reached
1.0 update.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alpha. They're out of, or I forget what if it goes
early
from beta
access, whatever it is. Yeah.
But we're in 1.0 now. And I like most recently my accomplishment was doing the long road achievement, which you need to go through 20 stages in one run.
Ooh.
And that took me 108 minutes, I think, to complete. So well over an hour and a half. And it was
almost 2. Yeah. Jeez.
It felt so good to do. Like, it was one of the most stressful things I've done in that game for a long time. And like, it is a game that I will just continue playing. Like,
it's another
endlessly.
one just go back to again and again.
Oh,
There's so many different characters, so many different mechanics, like whatever type, as long as you like action shooters, I guess.
Yeah. And
you'll find a way to play this game that you will enjoy.
It's so good.
I'm doing challenges for every character, and like it's going to just be a game that I will play for years to come. And
who knows what they're going to keep adding to it. It seems there's definitely room for more new characters, I'll say, as far as the UI
they
is
deserve a
concerned.
break, but if they make
I
more
agree.
content for this game, I'm not going to complain.
I'll still say,
it.
John, like when you showed us around in Risk of Rain 2, and that was one of my first experiences with that game. That's still one of my favorite multiplayer experiences.
That was so fun.
Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
I would.
That was a
love to play it
blast.
again.
And we
with you
talked about
guys
that on the
sometime
podcast
soon.
before. I'll try to remember to link to that. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
But yeah.
But anyway, on to my official list, which are all games we've mentioned on this podcast so far. But I did rank them, and at number 3, I'll put Animal Crossing New Horizons, which for all the same reasons that Randall said, like it came at just the right time, and especially for me, like I have my sisters have had kids in like the past couple of years, and I've really not been able to see. Like I've had 2 cousin or nieces and nephews who were born this year. And like I really haven't been able to see them at all.
Yeah.
And
Even being able to meet them.
right.
Yeah.
So like I've been able to connect with my sister and my brother-in-law and like my niece and like just visit their island and like run around, and they get to see.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Look at what Uncle John is doing. And
Awesome.
like it's been a really nice way to like interact in a way that you can't really do right now.
Yep.
And it's really been meaningful in like in a very meta way that I really wasn't expecting the game to be.
Yeah.
So, like, I really appreciate it on that front. And also, it's a really fucking good Animal Crossing
It's
game.
a great Animal Crossing.
But just back to the timing on that release, because I think I mentioned this before on the podcast too. Both with you, we played some Kirby's Dream Land 3, you and I, John. But like I played that with like my little like 4-year-old cousin.
Yeah.
And we were just playing, and I was teaching him. He loves Kirby. He played like whatever the game is on Switch, Star Allies or whatever. And really enjoyed that. And he loves Kirby's his favorite character. So that was so fun for me to like be able to hang with my little second cousin who I don't really get to see and play a game online. So like Animal Crossing seems even more. Although I bet your nieces and nephews go to your island and go, we didn't know this was in the game. After
honestly, my
thought
sister,
DJ had a lot of hours in Hades, but
my sister is like a pro at Animal Crossing. Like every time I go there, like I'm getting new content from her. Like,
man,
she is
Jeez.
destroying at this game.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But for my number 2 game is DJ's number 1, which is Hades.
It was no particular order, John.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I guess that's true. But yes, Hades, like DJ said, it is just a really great and like infinitely rewarding roguelike game that I played Transistor this year for my resolution game, and I loved it. I thought it was a really good narrative game, but like it did kind of, leave me a little cold on how like Supergiant games are often very linear, and you're kind of just following a set story. And the way that like the story unfolded in Hades just felt so reactive to the runs you were doing, but not scripted. And it just felt so good. And like, I will continue playing that game. I have continued playing that game, and it just feels good every single time.
Yeah, they nailed like the best elements from kind of all their previous games. I know none of us have played Pyre yet, but it kind of feels like they really nailed, like from Bastion and Transistor, they kind of pulled all that together and put it in a roguelike format, and it just worked.
It's unbelievable. Like I have not enjoyed a game that much, and until I got to my first game.
Nice.
Wow. Which is A Short Hike. And it is honestly like I think best example of a game with zero fat. Every single second of that game is so perfect. And
I think I played it in one sitting, if I'm not mistaken.
And the other thing is that like I've beaten the game. I've played this game multiple times since beating the game, and there's just still stuff to do.
Yes.
Like I picked it up yesterday, like to like refresh myself on like mechanics and just play it. And I got another golden feather.
That's
awesome. I was like,
nice.
How the hell did I not? Total now? I don't know. Like that's the thing. I was like, how is there still more stuff to do? How is there? And like
that is really comforting.
I haven't. Like, it doesn't feel like I've missed things.
Right.
It's just like there's more stuff to explore. There's just stuff there.
It's so comforting.
Like
it's
every nook and cranny is that game is just jam packed with
and like
just
meaningful.
Good it's not.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't feel like it's just like a bunch of things like tacked on.
It's not like Mario
really
Odyssey. I know. I know some of us like Mario Odyssey more than me, but it's not just like go ground pound on this dog that's barking at a pile of sand. It's like
don't
thanks,
bring
man.
your
it's like
Mario Odyssey.
I know you just like jumped in.
You know what I mean, though. It's like some of that stuff does feel unmeaningful or whatever. It doesn't. It doesn't feel as important. It just feels like you're just getting moons to get them.
Mario Odyssey.
Or like this feels like in a short hike, everything feels purposeful.
Yes, that everything exists on its own, whether you are there or not.
Yeah,
it does.
Always,
even the characters kind of like the NPCs kind of move around on their own.
And it is absolutely a narrative based game or a narrative driven game, but it's also.
But it's not linear.
It's
really.
Yes, it's
like,
so
and the gameplay is so fun. Like it's like this like isometric 3D platformer, like kind of like Mario, like the new. What are those called?
Land.
The 3D Land and 3D World games.
Yeah.
Like it kind of has that sort of like fixed camera perspective. Not the same, but It's just it's such a great game. Like I think I said
is.
earlier, it came very close to my list too.
Like as soon as I played it, it instantly became like one of my favorite games of all time. Like it's
nice.
It's
Another one that I'll go back to and kind of cozy up with when long day, long week, tough month, whatever you want to call it. Like good game to go back to.
That's what I'm saying. It's so comforting that I know that I beat that game technically, but there are so many things I can go back to. Like John was saying, there's so many little touches. He just found another gold star or a gold feather. Like I know I can go back to that game and play another 2 hours just dicking around it and doing meaningful things, and I'll have a great time. It's awesome.
And to be honest, even if you're not doing meaningful things, just like jumping
fun.
off the highest peaks and gliding around, like the movement just feels so nice. Like, it's so good. I think we mentioned on the podcast before, or at least I did, like I haven't had that much fun controlling a character since like the hub world or like the outside the castle in Mario 64, like in terms of like a 3D platformer goes. I just felt like I was just running around and like, I just want to be this character. I don't care what I'm doing. I just want to play as this character. Celeste had that too. You just have this like that bounciness and it just feels nice.
It's instantly rewarding.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I think we're done with kind of our makeshift game of the year segment. Since almost none of these games came out this year, although actually a handful of them did. It's sort of a legit game of the year segment. Hades and Animal Crossing,
Streets of Rage 4.
and I had maybe Resident Evil 2.
No,
Maybe?
no, that was a few years ago.
That was a couple years ago.
Yeah,
few years ago. Fuck.
Resident Evil 7.
Knows what I know.
We're good.
Fall Guys. We're in. There's a runner-up, but still, got a lot of relevant games here. But we're getting into our resolutions for next year, for 2021, which will hopefully be a better year than this year for most people. Not for
Fingers
everyone,
crossed.
But let's just get right into that, and we'll go in opposite order. John, what are you kind of resigning yourself to play this year?
So DJ's already grimacing because he's
DJ
worried
looks pretty red over there.
You might take mine. I don't know.
You know what? If I take yours, then we both get to play it and talk about it.
There you go.
I do
Exactly.
have two, and I might just pick two so that I do both. But
I have
That's
two
okay.
also.
Go
the
ahead.
one that I want to play that I really need to like just I have no reason to not, but I really want to play is Murder by Numbers.
Ooh,
yeah.
I think you've mentioned that before on the
I
podcast,
have.
right?
It's a Picross like visual novel adventure game.
Yes.
Kind of in the like Phoenix Wright type of games, and I've bought it. It's on my system.
Oh, I didn't know you picked it up. Okay.
Oh
cool.
yeah, no, I picked it up when I picked up all the Picross games, and for just no reason, I've been like keeping myself from enjoying this game. I know I will like.
Tell me when you started, John.
Absolutely. So DJ, what are you gonna play?
I thought you had a second game.
Hey, let's see. Let's see if that was your game. My
All
second.
right. Well, my game was not that, but I think it's one that you'll want to play, and that will be Deltarune.
That was. I do need
When
to
does
play
that come out, though?
Well, we got chapter 1.
Chapter 1 is out. God, I
Yep.
do need to play Deltarune.
Me too.
Dude, fuck Undertale, man.
Get out of here. All right. Fuck you.
I'm just being an asshole.
I know you are, so fuck you.
But I really hated that game.
Shut up.
You're the only one.
Well,
Go ahead.
You doing it for your resolution reignited my love of that universe. So it reminded me I need to play this, and I've been putting it off.
It's sitting
for
on
too
my
long.
Switch, too. I downloaded that chapter 1, yeah.
Me too.
Oh shit! I haven't downloaded anything, and I
DJ.
should have. Yeah,
Behind the curve.
I know.
DJ, tell me when you start that.
Will do.
Randall's apparently playing every
Randall's
resolution
playing
game
every
this
game
year.
this
Yeah.
year.
Beautiful. That's the best part. I love when we can like dig into a game a little deeper. So,
Yep.
what about you, Randall?
I've got kind of a combo pack. The main game I'm picking that I need to play through in 2021 is Ori and the Will of Wisps.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
This is all of us just going ooh after every time one of us lists
Ooh,
a
I'm
game.
gonna play that too.
That's also motivated by me just being able to finally pick up a Xbox Series X after trying for a few weeks here.
Nicely done.
But I still need to also finish playing Ori and the Blind Forest. So it's kind of a double pack that way for me, where I need to keep myself honest, finish Ori and the Blind Forest first, and then get into Ori and the Will of Wisps, because I've heard nothing but amazing things, and I want to play that game.
That 2-pack of physical cartridges that's coming out on Switch, that looks right up your alley, Randall. I don't know if you pre-ordered that yet, but...
No, God. Jeez. I'm going to play them on Xbox, I think.
Yeah, I know that Game Pass subscription. At one point I was like, maybe Game Pass should be my game of the year. but seriously, man, I played so many games on Game Pass. It's unbelievable.
It's a great
value.
There's
more coming. It's such I love it.
It really is.
Yeah. All right. Well, for my resolution game, I couldn't decide between two games, so I'm actually going to preface or like kind of proposition this to you guys and see if there's any one that you lean more towards, if anyone leads, more towards one than the other. But I'm torn between Owl Boy and Hyper Light Drifter. And if I'm picking one, if I'm going pure gut, I'm going Hyper Light Drifter is the one I want to play more, I think. But that's only because I know that Owl Boy has some story beats in the beginning. Like I hear that it's like a little bit of a slog to get through.
Words.
A little bit of a slog. I don't want to read this shit. But yeah. So is anybody? Because I have Owl Boy on a physical cartridge, and I really want to play it. It's a beautiful looking game. Yep. I hear it's really fun, and I hear once it gets going, I hear it's great.
Yep.
But I also, DJ, I know you've played Hyper Light Drifter, but I've got that sitting on my PS4. And I've been waiting to play it for a long time, and I've never even booted it. But it's just, I'm really torn. Is anybody itching to play one of the two of those?
Yeah, I reached the credits of Hyper Light Drifter, but there is definitely stuff beyond that.
Ooh.
So in a way, I don't feel like I truly beat it.
Okay.
So,
and did you enjoy it on the whole?
Yes. It was a few years ago, though.
Yeah, I was going to say that hesitation made me nervous.
Fuzzy. But I've definitely
just memory. Okay,
I've definitely toyed with the idea of going back to it. So you would definitely push me in that
be
direction.
in good company. Okay, yeah. What about you and what about Randall and John?
I mean, I'm a little biased in that I also own Owl Boy physically, so that would interest me if you went that route. But Hyper Light Drifter,
pop in the cartridge. Same here. Yeah,
I've heard nothing but great things about Hyper Light Drifter. So if you went that route too, that would really intrigue me. So and the graphics are amazing in both of these games. So
yeah,
I can go either way.
For real. What about you, John?
So when you threw out that you hadn't played Owl Boy, I was like, I'm pretty sure you absolutely have played Owl Boy, but I was thinking of Eagle Island.
Yeah.
So
that's what I was like.
I was going to say, dude, I've never even booted this game up, but
yeah. So I was like, I actually want to play Eagle Island.
Oh, that game is great too. Yeah, great game.
But I think you might like Hyper Light Drifter. That's what I would put my vote for you.
There you go.
I think, since DJ and Randall seem kind of torn, John leans Hyper Light Drifter, and that's where my gut's going.
There you go.
So I'm gonna go that. I'm gonna go Hyper Light Drifter is gonna be my resolution game. I hear it's kind of like Zelda meets Dark Souls combat wise. Like it's like way harder than your typical Zelda combat, at least, or more engaging or more dynamic than just like slashing a sword in the tile in front of you. As far as the 2D Zelda games go. But yeah, I think that's Hyper Light Drifter is going to be what it is.
Nice.
So
awesome.
Excited to check that out. And by the way, just real quick, Teddy Deef, I think, is the developer of Hyper Light Drifter. And he has actually a podcast on the Idle Thumbs network. It's like Playscape Los Angeles, I want to say is the name of it, where he just interviews a bunch of LA-based game developers. It's an older podcast, but definitely I think there's just like 10 or 15 episodes, but worth checking out. I might be remembering or misremembering that name, but I'll put a link in the episode description because I really enjoyed listening to those episodes.
Nice.
But yeah, as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitch. We've been doing a lot more videos lately, but we're also on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on Discord. We're hanging out all the time. If you got some games to recommend for us as opposed to the other way around, let us know. But yeah, until, cheers to 2021, and we'll catch you next year. And until then, take care.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.
But yeah, until next week, we can wrap it up there, and we'll catch you then. Take care. And take care.
Oh, you want another one of those?
Take care, yeah.
You want
Take care
another one
and
of
take care.
those?